Well, hello and good evening, my fellow We Don't Suckers. God, that sounds rough. So, hey, everybody, it's your friend, Billy Boy, Kill Bill the Rapper of the We Don't Suck podcast, and I'm here to hit you with some cold hard facts and knowledge on this fine evening. So, we actually recorded an episode for last week that we shelved. We didn't put it out because it was just 2 hours or so of us just ranting and complaining and venting. That's a good word, venting. And we realized pretty quickly that there was not a lot of entertainment value in this, so we decided to shelve the episode. However, our resident channel artist, Sharky, did a thumbnail for that episode, and me and Rav liked it so much that we didn't want to can the thumbnail. We wanted to keep the thumbnail. So even though it doesn't really match the vibe of this episode, we're keeping the thumbnail. Fuck you, Dad. You don't tell me what to do just because I had to work at the Wendy's for most of my life. You don't listen here, bud. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of you judging me. Enjoy the podcast, please. This is all we have.
Chicka. Yeah.
Kill Bill and Rav. We don't suck. Remember, when the day grows dark, we must fight on. We do not suck. Hyper fighting podcast.
Welcome back to the We Don't Suck podcast. It's your boy Rav, and it's also your boy Bill.
It is I, Bill.
So here we are, man. Episode 96.
Hey, come on.
Where were you in 96?
Like the whole year?
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, I mean, like...
Okay,
well,
starting January 1st.
Do you have any fond memories from that year in particular?
Oh, hell yeah, motherfucker, dude. Let me tell you. I was okay. I remember things by what video games I was playing.
Right.
For some reason. I had a Sega Saturn when I was in 96. Yeah, I got it for 95. I got it for Christmas, but I feel like I enjoyed it.
Fancy bitch.
Yeah, I know. My aunt, who passed away when I was 9, she bought me a Sega Saturn, but they said it was from Santa Claus.
Your aunt? How about your ladybug?
She died, Rav. She's dead. She's dead. She's dead.
So, that's cool. Yeah, I think I remember having the Genesis around the time. Still.
The genitals?
It's not funny.
The Sega genitals.
That's not funny. Yeah, I think I was still playing Mortal Kombat.
Tortoise Wombat. Because it's like two animals. They're really oddly specific.
So I got recognized in public the other day. That was cool.
Dude.
I was on my way to get
How was that?
I was on my way to get a haircut, and I had my mask on and everything. I don't ever really go outside. That was like one of the rare exceptions this year. I went out and somebody grabbed me by the shoulder. I put my headphones down and they were like, "Excuse me, but are you Rav?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then they asked for a picture and everything, and that was cool. So I get to add that to my resume, getting recognized in public with the motherfucking mask on, which is pretty tight. What you got? What'd you do, huh? Bitch.
Wait, hold on. We got to talk about this for a second. Like, that's kind of crazy because, like, I mean, like, I think that you're a pretty, like, recognizable guy. Like, I look at you and I say, that's Rav. So, you know,
but, yeah, come on. Yeah, okay. I'm waiting for
like,
it.
You know, like, what are the odds? Like, imagine just, like, how many times that person probably did that to people. Walked over, hey, man, are you Rav? What if he did that all across London looking for you?
No, but you're right. The crazy thing is that person is from the States, as far as I understand, right? And they were on vacation. They just so happened to be on vacation and just happened to be in that part of this big-ass city at the same time as I happened to be out, and I never go out. So yeah, no, the chances feel astronomical. So, but that's tight. That's cool. You know, I appreciate it. It was really cool.
Sounds pretty nifty.
Yeah, so it's cool. It felt like, I don't know, like it's been so long since I've interacted with any fans in person because of the pandemic. It was nice. Yeah. I liked it.
Last time I interacted with a fan was in Texas.
Oh yeah, the ceiling fan. That's right. I remember you.
Yeah.
Because you ain't got no fans. Because
yeah, yuck it up, motherfucker. I don't know. Like, I don't have a lot of like people who know who I am in person here. I like that. I don't like the idea of like going out and like people be like, "Hey, you," because like I bum it up a lot here. You know, like I don't like when I go out, I don't like dress up and I'll be like, oh, look how fucking cool I am. I got my mask on. My beard's like real crazy right now. My hair looks like shit. I'm wearing like a fucking Carhartt shirt and some, what are those, like cargo pants? I've been wearing the shit out of some cargo pants lately.
But you live like in the middle of also like a swamp, right? And like beneath the water. So it's rare that you sort of get to interact with other people. I guess
I see people every day. Not at my place, but like when I go
on your phone,
like,
sometimes you look at YouTube and you're like, this is what other people look like. I remember.
Yeah. Oh, why do they look so different than me?
No, but you know, I mean, like, I feel like you and I both have a very little likelihood that someone will recognize us just because I live in such a big city. For someone to actually assume I am me is kind of like bold, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Like, what if you make a mistake? What if you're wrong? It's such a big city. Who's to say that it's not someone else who has similar eyebrows and like, you know, articles of clothing? So that's very unlikely. And then you conversely live in a smaller town.
Your mouths for eyes that give it away.
That sometimes, but you know, I mean, with you conversely, it's like, you know, a small town. So it's less likely that you'll run into people from outside of the town, right? So yeah, but I agree.
Yeah.
I do also feel like that's nice not being recognized.
Oh yeah, like I mean, it would be cool. Like what you just said sounds very cool.
No, yeah, it was exactly. I was gonna say, but my experience in particular wasn't. This one wasn't a very awkward one. You know, I didn't get followed for a long time and had pictures taken of me from afar or anything like that. It was really super cool, and yeah,
sounds tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird though. I have noticed like there's been this like really big influx of people asking me since last year for people asking me to do a Columbia show or a Charleston show or somewhere in South Carolina. So it makes me think that there must be people here
for sure
know who I am. But in my hometown, I think the people that do know about my music think that it's like I'm just living a lie.
Right.
And that like I don't have any real fans or whatever, or they don't care that much. I think,
right.
But I legitimately do think that there's people here who think that I'm like, oh yeah, I don't talk to anyone. I don't even know why they would think that, but I feel like there's people here. This is that kind of town. They all just think the worst of you, you know?
Yeah. Just because I think they assume you exist in the same kind of world that they do. So why would you be experiencing things that are outside of their realm of understanding or the realm of their experiences, you know? I think that's normal.
Yeah.
I think that's why, like, oftentimes, you know, it's your friends. Well, they're not really your friends if that's the case, but it's oftentimes your friends who are like, man, I can't believe how, like, popular you are, you know? Which is, like, low-key hateful, but it's them. It's like, I just can't, like, it's for them.
Well, I don't think they mean it.
They don't
like
mean
that.
it in a hateful way. They just mean like, wow, but like I know you and like we exist in the same world, and so then seeing people freak out about you is just like it's so foreign to them, because it'd be weird if they constantly freaked out about me, you know. So I think there is that. It's harder for them to believe. Whereas if you are a fan, You know, I never look at someone I look up to, or like, okay, I say look up to. I never look at someone, and I never go like, I look at Q-Tip and go like, damn, I can't believe you're popular. You know, like I never think that, right? Because I'm like, oh, of course you're popular. You're so talented. I never knew the person. I don't know Q-Tip personally and intimately, and I never knew them prior to them becoming famous. So I never got to experience them in any other capacity than a successful artist or a talented artist. Fuck the successful part. A talented artist. Right. Whereas your friends, they see more dimensions of your being outside of the artist, because they get to see you on your bad day, on your good day. They get to see you, you know, do a funny fart and then like laugh it off and stuff like that. So they get to know you.
Well, all these good people get to see that too. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I guess the podcast and the Let's Play stuff and the streaming stuff, which I haven't done in a while, by the way, but I plan to get back to it very soon.
Oh yeah, dude. I wanna start streaming again soon, but I wanted to do a stream this Sunday, which if you're listening to this right now, it would be last Sunday. So you're late to the party. You missed my content.
Bill did not stream. Now he looks silly.
Oh, dude, thank you.
Bitch.
Thank you for streaming this Sunday. You shouldn't have.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate the future past love that we've got going on here. Do you ever think, this is something I wanted to say, I have this like weird feeling that, because like, okay, you look at someone like a fucking Q-Tip, right? Mm-hmm. Like someone like, you know, a legend in rap music, okay? Just a legend in music, period. I think that even someone like that, they have this kind of even more natural progression of things, because it was like, damn, that was like when motherfuckers would just get famous. They would like get picked up, they'd make a record, and they'd get famous, you know, from released it through a label. And it was kind of like, oh yeah, he made it, you know? And I think the difference is with like the internet and how it works now is, I think the definition of made it is real different. And because like in my head, I'm like, okay, I've made it because I was able to quit my job.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You made it. I made it too.
And I can do what I want to do with my life.
Exactly.
All the time.
Yeah, you were living the dream. So
right?
yeah, we made it. Exactly.
So in my head, I'm like, damn, this is it, bro. You know, like,
yeah, but then,
like, even if
you see comments where like, yo, man, I can't wait for you to become famous, or like it's such a shame that you're not famous, or like, which are very kind sentiments, but I'm not looking to become Ariana Grande. I want to.
Why not, dude?
I'm really happy. I would like to have even a stronger sense of, you know, security, I suppose, right? Who wouldn't? But I am just like you. I got to quit my job. I'm not as miserable anymore. I get to do whatever I want whenever I want. As far as I'm concerned, I've made it, and I'm not someone who ever really cared about the fame aspect of this thing, you know? Mm-hmm. I never did this for fame, and I totally get it if some people do. I mean, we know a lot of people who do sort of strive to attain fame. For me, it was more so I wanted the financial security to continue just doing what I want without having to compromise on it, and having enough time to do other things if I wanted to, and I've attained that. So that's where I like to be. I'm not particularly comfortable with the idea of fame. Of course, there's levels to it, but you know what I mean. Like I gave Ariana Grande as an example of me being uncomfortable with that kind of stuff.
I'm like all the way cool with being like a D- celebrity. Like I don't
exactly
really like. I mean, it's cool. Like I can understand it's cool from a perspective of like validation to some people, but I don't want to do something because that just sounds like it just makes things complicated. Like it's already complicated. Like I feel like like making music in a sphere where you're not working with a label and like basically having to like kind of like do all these like little things that a label normally would do, or that like a publicist would do, or whatever the fuck. It's already a little complicated, and I know that I don't want things to get in the way of the creative side of things, because that's like one of the few things on this planet that actually gives me happiness. Like I can sit there and play a video game and I'll enjoy it, or I can go out to eat or something like that, and I'll be like, damn, this is nice, you know? But there's not like that real sense of fulfillment there, and pretty much nothing else gives me that. And it's not on a sense of fulfillment of in other people's eyes. It's like, I did this. This is what I've loved doing since I was like 15. I like doing this. The process of just sitting down, recording something, maybe working on it as you go, just sitting in the fucking studio room and turning the lights off, vibing. Like, that shit is so much fun.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be like, and that's another thing, man. I don't want to record. Like, I like recording with other people, but I like the process of just like being completely by myself and like shutting my phone off and just like making some shit.
Right. And I think a lot of people just have the interpretation that fame equates with success, because attention is definitely an integral part to the equation of success in terms of even, like what we wanted to achieve. Without attention and support, how are you going to be able to attain all the financial success that you need, right? So attention is definitely integral to it, but to an extent. But I think a lot of people don't understand that, and they think that, well, you need a lot of attention. And also there's a lot of misinformation online. And so actually, let's talk about that on this episode. Let's talk about the pros and cons. And I mean, we're probably going to miss a lot of points on this one because we didn't prepare ahead of time, but let's just kind of have an informal conversations of pros and cons of being independent, entirely not signed, and being signed to a label, right? Even if it is independently, to an independent label. Let's discuss that, because I think it's important to dispel some rumors. I think, oftentimes people will see like someone will have like a couple million or a million online, monthly listeners on Spotify, but they'll complain about getting peanuts off of the streams.
Yeah.
So there's a conversation to be had there, because a lot of people then assume that like, oh, but how are you going to ever survive with, a third of a million monthly listeners? And so let's start with some basic differences between being independent and being signed. So I would like to preface this conversation with that a label, in my eyes, is like a bank. It gives you a loan to invest into your career, right? Instead of a mortgage. And that can come in different ways. And some labels are a little more hands-on than others. Some just kind of give you a sum of money, and they have certain contractual expectations that you either stay with them for a certain amount of records, certain amount of years. And there's also expectations of what kind of cut do they get from your music. So some just have like a bank loan where they expect you to make a certain amount of money back plus interest. Some just take your royalties, like a portion of your royalties. And what royalties are is basically your rights, how much your own music or art belongs to you, how much of it belongs to you, how much of it belongs to the label. Now, if you are absolutely independent, doing everything by yourself, you have pretty much everything. You choose how you invest your money, but you do have to gather that money yourself. No one invests in you. You have to make those investments yourself. So do you have anything you'd like to talk about, at least on that front, in terms of that, a label funds you, whereas you have to kind of pick and choose how you fund yourself?
I mean, I think a lot of times people get a team. Like, it'll be a situation where, like a rapper will, or sometimes it's provided they're hired on through the label. I feel like that's more likely is like a situation where they've divvied up this money and like they get an amount, and that also like they have like a team of people around them that if this person wins, they all win, basically. And their job is to further this person's career in some kind of way, whether that be make sure they're at the right place at the right time, entourage type situation, if they're like a manager type situation, or they're a publicist, like all these different like cogs in this machine that makes it go. Because like when you think of somebody like Drake, like he's not just making music for Drake. There's like a team of like 300 fucking people at least.
He has employees, right, that he needs to pay.
That he has to pay, and they all are successful through through Drake because it's this massive amount of money coming in from him. But it's not all just going to him. It's going to the label, probably gets a percentage of the royalties. And then on top of that, all the people he has to pay, all this other stuff. And that's why you see like major labels, like sometimes the artists will come out and complain about Spotify not paying enough. Now, I'm not saying that Spotify shouldn't pay more. I do firmly believe that they should.
100% agreed. Yeah.
I don't know the logistics of that exactly. I know that for a long time they were working at a loss, but now this is their first year where they were profitable.
But they've been working at a loss the same way Amazon's been working at a loss for many years. They've only been working at a loss in the sense that all the profits they make, they reinvest directly back into the company. That way they avoid having paying taxes, but they also get to decide how they want to grow their company. So it may look on the outside looking in, it might look like they're operating on a loss, but in fact it's kind of like Donald Trump loss, where it's calculated tax avoidance, not tax evasion, tax avoidance, which is legal and kind of a standard procedure.
Yeah. So basically, I believe that they should pay more. I know for a fact this because like I know that like Apple Music pays more, but then you have something like Tidal, which pays way more, but less people use it.
Napster pays more.
Napster pays more, which is weird.
Napster pays the most, right?
What's really funny is like Napster pays the most, and then they got famous from basically just like spreading music illegally, which is so funny.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, no, it's crazy that Napster and Tidal pay the most. I think Napster edges it out, right? Like it's not like a crazy amount.
Yes, it does by quite a bit. No, actually still by quite a bit. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I didn't know. So so that's crazy. Go listen to us on Napster. I think we're on Napster.
Yeah, we are. But the thing is, no one really uses Napster, and not as many people use Tidal. And there are reasons for it. Sometimes it's a matter of like how much one service costs over the other, but also the algorithms, the UI, and the UX, all of these things play a part. And I agree with you. Yes, I do think artists could be paid more. And actually, later on, I want to talk to you about a development on that front. There's a new conversation going on about how much Spotify should be paying artists. We can tackle that in a bit. But yes, like they're basically what you're saying. There's a lot of splits. And I think you make a great point about the whole team thing, whether it's just a manager or a team of like people who do various different things, an A&R, a manager, and other people. The reason labels also oftentimes that's part of the clause of like, you sign a deal, you get a certain amount of money, but you get those teams is because, they can't just sign a 17-year-old dude and giving them a bunch of money, expecting them to not squander that money.
Exactly.
And so it's important sometimes to have a team lead them like, okay, well, you're going to need to put this money aside for taxes. You're going to need to put this money aside for like what do you want to do for your music video? You need probably at least this much. You need this much for recording fees, this much for mixing, and this much for mastering. They help you basically manage your account with the loan that you've been provided. That way the label, it's kind of insurance for the label, that they feel more safe knowing that the artist is left in trustworthy hands that is going to flip that money. Because you have to think, for them, they're betting on you. As much as they are spending money on you, they are also hoping to make that money back and then some, right? So talking about a return, since we're on the subject of, a label expects a return, if you already are developing a grassroots following, you may not want to necessarily go with the label unless you see them helping you in a way that you by yourself can help yourself. Because with a grassroots following, if you start developing and growing it, there is a market. You're finding your market, and you can continue to expand it, which means that there is a demand. And so if a label is interested in you, they see that they can give you money because they hope to make more money off of you. They see the potential in you. If you're able to tap into that potential by yourself, and you're confident that you're able to fund that, but also be smart enough and network with the right people to help you achieve the highest quality stuff, then maybe you don't need to go with a label.
Yeah.
Conversely, if you don't have a grassroots following and you need that kickstart, and a label exec, for instance, heard you perform at an open mic event and they've expressed interest, then maybe that could be in your interest sometimes to discuss some sort of potential deal there, because they might be able to provide you with that initial spark. They might get you placements in blogs or magazines that otherwise you kind of wouldn't be able to do at the time. They might be able to help you sort of attain a bit of a following, but that's also not guaranteed to work necessarily either, as we've seen with a lot of industry plants. What was the name? Rory, I think, was a great example of an industry plant that kind of never took off. He had an XXL magazine freshman placement. When he appeared on there, people were like, who is this guy? We've never heard of this guy. Yeah. A label put a lot of money behind him, but there was no organic growth there to begin with, and so it didn't translate quite as well as had that person managed to get some of that support by themselves. And I say by themselves, but there's obviously gradients and levels to it. There's a difference between an Aesop Rock, a Tyler the Creator, a Chance the Rapper, a Kendrick Lamar, like all of these people you could, and XXXTentacion. A lot of these artists, you look to the roots, a lot of it does seem like grassroots constructed fan bases that they've put together, but there's still teams there. Kendrick Lamar wasn't by himself. He was signed to an albeit independent label, but he was working with a team of people. Tyler the Creator, when he started bubbling up and we were all like, oh, he's making all his music videos himself, he already had, what's his name, Lancey or
Clancy.
He already had Clancy, who's been in the industry for many years prior to that. He helped guide him, helped facilitate a lot of the things that Tyler wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
Then Chance the Rapper, he was another person who famously people sort of looked towards as like, an independent success, but he had a lot of money behind him. He came from a well-to-do family. He was able to get a lot of pretty big placements early on. I say placements, he got a bunch of big features early on through money, through connections, through his family, etc. So that's kind of a type of an industry plan. Tyler the Creator is a type of industry plan in the sense that it's someone who already started having a team or a semblance of a team that then was made to look very independent and moving kind of in a non-corporate way.
Yeah.
Achieving a following, which, by the way, I'm not shitting on that. A lot of people shit on industry plants and they have an understanding of what industry plant means, but there's a variety of different types of industry plants.
See, like in my head, when I think the term industry plant, like I don't really think in the same... I don't think I understand what you're saying, but I don't even know if that really counts in my noggin as like the same parameters, because like someone like Tyler, he came out with Bastard and like kind of made noise, and like there was a bunch of people in that clique that were all like kind of making noise just on the internet solely. Yeah. And then like Clancy kind of stepped in when shit was starting to bubble and then just like made it bubble harder. Versus like when I think of an industry plant, I think of someone who, like, I understand what you're saying from a perspective of like, oh, they made it look like this is completely independent, and like technically on paper it was, but they also had like a team with money behind it that like stepped
and direction. Exactly.
And like Clancy is like really, really good at his job. Okay, like that's like a thing.
Absolutely.
Who did he manage prior to? Was it? I can't remember who it was.
I don't recall, but he's definitely been in the industry for a while. But no, okay, yeah. So I see what you're saying, and definitely, I'm not saying that, man, before Clancy, Tyler wasn't even making music, right? Which absolutely isn't the case, and he obviously had an interest in shooting videos, recording music, making beats, and all of these things. And so that was a truth, and there was something that he put out there that helped him get noticed by Clancy. I'm just saying, from that point onwards, the approach was more of an industry plant approach, where it was supposed to look that like it was purely independent, right? But as soon as Bastard was released, if not even prior to that, Clancy was already on the team, So, and you need that too. You know, when you're like 16, it's a lot harder to accomplish certain things on your own without having someone who has the experience to help guide you through that. And that's not a bad thing. Nothing to take away from Tyler. It's just an example of that. And same with Chance, you know, not to take away. Hey, okay, fine. You can be wealthy and kind of buy your way into validity. That's what I would say. Not success, just a level of validity.
I just remember hearing Chance and like
out of nowhere.
Well, the thing, I heard acid rap first and everybody was like, holy shit, this is a good album. I really like that album. Right. And
yeah, it's great.
But then like you look at all of the features that are on it. It's got Twista and it's got a bunch of like, who is it? No Name before she was No Name.
Yeah. It's got Vic Mensa.
Vic Mensa. It's got Absol is on a song.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, so it's like kind of like this. Action Bronson. Is Action Bronson on one of them? Am I tripping?
I believe so. But also before that, before acid rap, he had a tape called 10 Day, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. So, and if I recall correctly, that one already had some pretty big features for someone who's just like coming out of nowhere, and it sounded well produced. I think like there was production from Flying Lotus, Chuck English, and you know, some other Lex Luger. So some notable industry people. I don't know if that he approached it in a mixtape way and just took those beats. I may be wrong, but I remember Vic Mensa being on his first tape as well. And again, if you're just someone coming out of nowhere. Well, I guess, wait, Vic Mensa is from Chicago, right?
Yeah, and a lot of the features that were on, like Twist is from Chicago. So
yeah, Twist and No Name is from Chicago. Yeah,
I think a lot of those were like, at least, I'm not saying that they were or they weren't, but it did kind of have this whole like, oh, like this is Chicago kind of sound. You know, like it had a few different ones, like Absol wasn't, you know, but...
Right.
Like it. Oh, by the way, just while you were talking here, I looked up more into Christian Clancy, who everyone just calls Clancy. So Clancy from Odd Future actually used to work for Universal, then started working with Interscope, and he hit it off with Steve Berman at one point, who's the vice chairman there, at least at the time. I don't know if he still is, but yeah, apparently he somehow convinced Berman to make him his product manager, and then he was consulting for Eminem for a while, right before.
Yes, that's right. I wanted to say Eminem, but I didn't want to say that for a fact. I think Square told me about that.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because I mean, they all went on tour together, but it's just like such a kind of like at the same time, I guess it was because they were both like edgy, like loud rap music at the time.
Absolutely, and Tyler was super obsessed with Eminem back then as well, right? And you could tell he took a lot of inspiration on that whole like counterculture stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Like the super like kind of violent, edgy stuff was definitely like in that same vein. So it's interesting to think, and it's so weird now because he makes such music that doesn't sound anything like that. You know, like it does, like from a production standpoint to an extent, but it's so weird now. I couldn't ever hear.
Well, yeah, he was a kid, you know.
I know,
so
of course, he outgrew it. You know, it's just it's just funny now, like looking back.
Oh yeah, how different it's become. Yeah, it shows growth. But I mean, like, okay, so I know a lot of people probably be butthurt that I said industry plan, or I used the industry plan term in a way that maybe doesn't align with other people's definitions, and that's fine. You know, you're welcome to your own definition. All I'm saying is that it's not like these people reach the peak of their or like notability or noticeability on their own. That's all I'm trying to say.
There's
right?
nothing wrong with like whether you want to say it's industry plant or you say someone stepped in from the industry or just say like they had help. You know, like there's nothing wrong with having help. I think a lot of people think as soon as someone gets with a label or starts working with, like, I think all that shit should be tossed out the window when you talk about music from a creative standpoint. Like, it's like did Tyler the Creator compromise what he was doing with his music and with his shows to line up with the labels at the time? Definitely not. Like, I don't
Definitely
think
not. Exactly. Right.
same thing with Chance. Chance didn't really change either. You know, I think that, I mean, he went on that like kind of gospel angle, but I think that was already kind of there, you know? So it's like, I don't think that, I think people get so hung up on, oh, are they really authentic or such and such? And I'm like, if the music is good, if you like the music or you don't like the music, should be more of the question in terms of, I don't think you should question their credibility on making moves to get more famous or to make more money. I don't think that that's right.
Couldn't agree with you more. And honestly, I do still think the conversation is important to have. The only reason I bring it up is because I think oftentimes there's a smoke screen between the consumer and the artist. And with a lot of these artists, I do dislike it when they make it sound like, no, this is completely independent. It was just all me, you know, pure raw talent. Now, if there wasn't that talent there to begin with, obviously it would be a lot more difficult to attain the level of success that they have.
For sure.
But I feel like it's also misleading when you say that, you know, you're independent or this was all like you and your own brain and everything. It's misleading to exclude the guidance, whether monetary or management wise, because then I feel like a lot of people want to replicate that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but what they're trying to replicate is not what actually happened,
it's
right?
Impossible.
I just don't feel like
I'm not saying that you can't like you can do whatever you want, but I mean, like, I don't think that, I think people get it confused, okay? Like, they look at Chance the Rapper and they see like, he doesn't have a label. I can do this without a label, right? And whether or not he made smart decisions on just getting distribution or distributing himself or what he did, that's out of the question. They don't think about that. They think like, oh, he doesn't have a label. He did it all for Dolo. But you don't do it all for Dolo and end up on Kit Kat commercials. That's not how that works. Like, whether that money is coming from a company, whether that money is coming from some outside music source, something gave you the connection to work with big companies. And like, they don't just like I doubt Kit Kat just reached out to Chance the Rapper. I think that you have to have a connect to Kit Kat. You see what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like, it just seems,
exactly.
It seems like you're selling people a pipe dream when at the end of the day, you shouldn't really be worrying about like, am I going to get a Kit Kat commercial or not? But like, it is misleading to be like, I did this all by myself. And I know rappers do that shit. You know, major label people do that shit. Like, how many times you heard fucking like Rick Ross say self-made such and such and such or whatever.
It's selling a dream. And the thing is, labels do play to that. So first of all, artists say it because a lot of them, there is a level of insecurity and they do want to be sometimes cooler, or artists in general cooler than maybe some people. They worry people would perceive them if they knew the full story. And for labels, perpetuating this idea also makes sense because it makes the brand stronger and more likable, right?
Yeah.
Because of you were talking about the whole like, oh, being genuinely yourself. And it's not to say that you can't succeed without that. I'm just saying, okay, one of the paths that people take is that they do something, it gets noticed by the right person, and then they build from that. And sometimes a person has something and they also already have the means to getting heard. So Chance the Rapper had already the means to get noticed, whereas Tyler was very fortunate to get noticed by someone who was within the industry, but he got noticed for his own ability. Another person would be Doja Cat, for instance. She basically just started getting into the idea of wanting to make music, and she recorded was it Get High or whatever it was called,
or So High, that's what it was.
So High. She recorded it on her MacBook. Mic. She told me this, and it had over 1 million plays on SoundCloud, which back then was a big deal, and so quickly. And then she started being contacted by various parties. She got her first deal, and I remember when I was talking to her like shortly after she got her first deal, you know, it's not like her life was already successful. She was, at the time, I remember she was saying her dream was like to join Raider Clan.
Oh hell yeah.
And then later that year or the next year, she joined OG Maco's crew.
I remember that. Yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah. And then she left that. I think she then was working with a different label. She did Bitch I'm a Cow meme song that she put out. It got a bit of virality to it. But then it kind of sort of fizzled out. But then that allowed her sort of more opportunities. I think probably after that song went viral, maybe either labels poured more money into her or I don't know. But she always had the talent to begin with. But it's not like that was alone enough to attain instant
the thing
fame,
about
right?
I think a lot of people don't understand about Doja is that she can like rap her ass off. Like she can really rap. Like I remember watching that old fucking the dumbfounded smoke box or hot box. That's what it's called. Hot box. And I remember being like, damn, she fucking spitting. Like she's really spitting. You know, and but it's cool that I mean she just she did Say So, and that's become like one of the biggest fucking songs.
Oh, it's a great song.
Yeah, it's a good song too. And but I think the Bitch I'm a Cow thing was like the best thing, like the smartest thing she could have did because it got eyes on her and she had the like talent to be like, oh yeah, by the way, I got this other shit. And see, like when I first saw the Bitch I'm a Cow, I'm like, damn, like what the fuck? This is not like in my head. I was like, this could either work out really good or really bad. Like I was like, either it's gonna be like, oh, there's gonna be more eyes on her, or it's gonna be like she's gonna be known as the Bitch I'm a Cow person. And now I feel like people know her more for Say So, and like have forgotten about Bitch I'm a Cow. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's I'm glad that worked out for her.
Yeah, I remember when she released Mirror, and then I couldn't find it online for many years. And 5 months ago, it got uploaded on YouTube by someone, which is crazy. But I remember, like, that's the kind of Doja Cat I remember. Either way, it doesn't matter. Like, she was clearly very young, but very talented. And it took her, she navigated a particular path. And she did obviously have label support, but she wouldn't have been able to attain it without also some ingenuity on her own part and talent and dedication, you know? Yeah. She definitely is someone who puts the work in. But we kind of went off on a tangent here, but it was just to say that there are different approaches. So oftentimes it might be a label, might be a manager that kind of notices you or picks you up. It might sometimes be that you happen to be part of a circle of various talented people. And I don't mean Brockhampton, because Brockhampton is another one that already had management behind it. A very similar situation to Tyler, where it's kind of made to look completely independent, where it's not the case. Not to take away from the talent of each member, just saying that that's something that there was some guidance, but they were a group of very talented people. But one example that comes to mind to me is ASAP Rocky, right? The popularity sort of was centralized through ASAP Yam's Tumblr page, which was popping. And so ASAP Yams essentially kind of became almost like his manager or his team or creative director. Yeah. So without Yams, Rocky wouldn't have, I don't think he would have attained the same level of fame, or at least as soon as he did, because Yams helped create that direction, you know, that world for him to exist.
Like Yams was the one who pushed him to rap over the type of beats that he did and kind of like have the aesthetic that he did. And I was reading up on Yams a few years ago, and apparently he used to intern at Dipset, which is makes a lot of sense, actually.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because like they went with that same kind of approach of Dipset,
and also Harlem.
Yeah, exactly. But like the big thing for people who don't know, because I feel like a lot of our listeners are, you know, maybe didn't know about Dipset at the time, or like what was so kind of like big about Dipset. So like I feel like back in the day in New York, it was like G Unit, and then you had like Rockefeller, and then you had fucking Dipset, and Dipset was technically a part of Rockefeller.
I was gonna say, yeah.
At one point, and then they had that split, and then Dame, he went with Dame Dash in them. So it was like, basically, they were huge, like huge. They were like such a big deal, especially in the New York like scene. And they were kind of like the anti-G Unit to me. That was like the
Right. Yeah, exactly. And also, just to show you how big they were, like the biggest artist arguably on the come up around that time. I say come up, that he's already been a veteran by that point, but Lil Wayne was the most buzzing artist. And then I would say it would probably be Dipset, because like Jewels was super buzzing back then. You know,
Yeah.
Jewels and Wayne were super closely associated.
Oh yeah, because they
which
had
is
the
not-
I Can't Feel My Face tapes. Those are so
that
good.
they said, yeah, well, they were going to work on the I Can't Feel My Face album, I think, for a long time, and it took them over 10 years. So by the time I think they actually finished it and came out with it, nobody
Yeah, no
paid
one
attention.
cared. Yeah,
No,
that's sad.
it's too late. Yeah,
I
it's too
remember
late.
listening to the fucking mixtapes, which were really just kind of like a bunch of Wayne songs, a bunch of Jewel songs, and then like a
Yep.
few collabs like sprinkled in between. And,
was tight, though.
yeah,
It
it was
worked.
real tight. It was real tight, dude. But yeah, dude, like all those, there was a specific kind of like sound that with the beats of Dipset that was kind of, I would say it's like ahead of its time. A lot of the beats were kind of bad, like looking back, but like a lot of them, the ones that were good were really good, if that makes any sense to me. And they were, I feel like, I might be wrong on this, but like the first like super New York crew that was rapping on down tempo beats, like really slow beats. Like in that way, almost sound like trap production with like these like real super hyper crazy like string samples, and then they would kind of go from that and do more like kind of like soulful type stuff. But then it, like the Hell Rel, the fucking J.R. Ryder, they'd always rap over these like really ridiculous sounding like Get 'Em Daddies, a really like just stupid beat, you know what I mean? And I think that attitude translated into like how ASAP Mob did their production, because like they were rapping over beats that were like not of that area, like that region. Because that was like all of them were rapping over like old school, like Houston type beats. I know they were like
Houston, a bit of Memphis.
Yeah, exactly. And that whole funk wave that Raider Clan had already kind of was working on, but hadn't quite actuated into a mainstream sound. You know, they kind of took that underground sound and then pushed it.
And they were
into-
closely associated back then. Like, I
Yes.
remember the association was super close.
And then
you
they
know?
got in a fight, a big fight.
And then they got in a fight. Yeah.
Xavier
and
Wolf
then,
punched ASAP Ferg. So
Yeah.
that's fire, right? Yeah.
yeah.
They had
So there you have it.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, dude.
That's it.
But exactly though, that like to prove your point though, I mean, everybody fucks with ASAP Rocky now. A lot of people fuck with Ferg. I remember when he came out and he had gotten that deal with, I think it was Interscope, right?
Yeah.
And it was like for
think so.
$5 million. It was like an absurd amount of money. Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, who the fuck is this guy? You remember being like that? I think we had that conversation. We're like, who the fuck is ASAP Rocky?
Kind of. And I remember being kind of mad at first before I even heard his music, because I was an Aesop Rock fan, and I'm like, God
Oh,
damn it! Now there's gonna be this big dude who's gonna blow up, and like there's gonna be this constant like miscommunication, and I mean that came to be the reality. Whenever I tell people I like ASAP Rock, they assume ASAP Rocky, which I don't mind, by the way, because I love ASAP Rocky as well.
Yeah.
You know, for very different reasons, but I absolutely love most of his music. But yeah, that the reality is that, you know, and again, it's not to say that it's impossible to achieve what to a lot of people would be success. It's basically making money entirely off of music. It's possible to achieve that without necessarily having funding from a label or guidance from someone who has some sort of hands-on experience within the industry. It is possible. It's just that you don't necessarily need to rely on it. And okay, a lot of our rapper friends have managers, have deals of some sort, whether it's like record label deals, A&R deals. This is a real thing, especially the record label deals and managers. We have quite a few people that we know who have that. And so the difference is, when they make their money off of Spotify streams, that money needs to be then split between them and their teams and their labels. And also, once you leave a label or once you finish with your deal, 9 times out of 10, the royalties split is kind of in perpetuity. Which means that it's forever. You could leave Interscope, but if you sign the deal saying they own 60 or 40% of your music, they continue to own that music that you made with them.
Yeah, a lot of times you have to buy your masters back, which I know like Taylor Swift was like one of the first people in recent memory that made it a big deal when she bought her masters back. But
which is what Kanye West is trying to do. Even though he's a billionaire, he's struggling to do it.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm like sitting here, like, and you can listen to Kanye West talk about, I just listened to some of the thing with him on Joe Rogan and him talking about his, how he operates, like he loses money on music currently. Right. Which is crazy when you think about it. Like,
it's not because he put so much money into the music videos and the choirs and like everything. He kind of goes with like the grandiose delivery of it, right? The way that he presents it is so grandiose and like eye-catching that he has to put a lot of money into that for it to be noticed. But although he will say he's losing money off of music, that the money that he injects into his music also helps assist his brand in general. You know, the grandioseness of it is now associated with Kanye, so it helps him sell his Yeezys and stuff like that still. But yes, for purposes of taxes and how he maybe works around them, he's probably taking an L on the music.
But I'm just saying that if he did completely own his masters, he probably would at least make something like off of that.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Now, I'm not saying that he's not, obviously he's a fucking billionaire. He makes a lot of money. He knows what to do to make money. And I think that the music is almost like a vehicle, like an advertising vehicle at this point. But I think that if he owned his masters, that it would be an advertising vehicle that also makes money. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Because he's also at the point where he doesn't need a label anymore, right? Because he's at a point where he's such a big brand that you can't tell me that like, oh man, as soon as he's not working with the label anymore, Kanye will flop. No, because he can hire people himself. He can pick and choose who he hires, and he can own most of his music, if not all of it, right? So he's in a position where he doesn't really need a label, but he was in a position at one point or another where he did need a label, right?
Oh, for sure.
And that's where like a lot of our friends have been, where they know that realistically the label can help them attain certain heights that maybe on their own they don't feel comfortable doing. So I've had labels approach me and propose various deals, and most of the time the proposed thing, like the worst part about it, is the royalty split. I don't intend to split my royalties with the label for all the aforementioned reasons that we discussed, but oftentimes the discussion will be like, hey, you get to keep 60 but we'll take 40, and that to me is a no-no, especially when I consider like, okay, what can they do for me? They say that they can do this, that, and the third, and then I check against my model and see like, am I able to achieve those exact same things that they propose? Yes, I can, and maybe even better. Or if I don't have those things, can I afford to fund them by myself? Yes, then I'd rather keep my whole bag. And it's not to say that I will always say no to any label that ever comes my way.
Yeah.
If there's a label that has a conversation with me where I get to keep my royalties, but I pay them their loan back in like a big interest or something, or like some sort of deal where basically I get to keep my rights, right? But they help with funding and help with direction, I take it, because, you know, it's great to own everything by yourself and do everything by yourself because it gives you a massive degree of control over your brand. But conversely, you know, I don't have experience in the industry, and there's a lot of things that I would love to have help with. Like, for instance, just printing, ordering CDs or vinyls and then paying for fulfillment and all of these things. Just going through finding the channels and going through the necessary channels to facilitate certain things that are kind of basic, just to sell CDs or sell merch. These things seem basic, but when you're doing it like by the thousands, it is kind of tough as a single individual with no ties to the industry or that like experience that would allow you to make it all easier. So in those moments, I'm like, damn, maybe a label would make this shit a little easier.
I think for me personally, the idea of releasing through a label, I would rather, like, instead of signing a deal, some kind of development deal with a label or something like that, like the idea of like someone who helps fund merch stuff or like records or something like that, and then you pay them out and it's almost like a case by case kind of like scenario, makes more sense to me, and they handle everything versus like them getting a cut of my royalties. Like that's a different thing entirely to me. And I know that's not technically like a record label deal. I mean, I guess it can be like I guess that's more distribution or something. I don't know how
distribution
that works.
deal. Yeah.
Like a distribution deal makes more sense to me, because like we're at kind of this like weird point where like I firmly believe that if you dropped a project or I dropped a project, it would be like a thing that changes everything for us. We're in kind of like this weird we're at this point where we're on the tipping point to seeing a lot more success. Or I don't even want to say success, just more people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like more people looking and listening, and
More attention
in general. And I think that that if you signed with a label, you might get more attention out of that, but it wouldn't be worth what they'd be taking out. Unless it was a smaller amount, or if, like you said, it was actually they just gave you the funding and the resources and you paid them back with interest. That would be a kind of different situation. But like, let's say you drop something right now and it would have bubbled over anyway, and it got you like 1 million listeners on Spotify, right? Okay, which is like a lot, for a lot of people. If you got 1 million listeners on Spotify and you released a project through someone, let's say you didn't, and you got like 900,000 versus the 1 million, but you'd be splitting it where it's like you're only getting like 60%. You would be losing
at
money.
most.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like you would be losing money. And I would rather have less people listening and make more money than like have more people listening and make less money. You feel me?
Oh,
like,
yeah. No, yeah. In terms of just streaming money, like we make more money than a lot of artists that you guys are very familiar with, like names that have millions of monthly listeners sometimes. We make more money off of streaming than them oftentimes, just because, again, the deals, the nature of the deals, and how that money is split.
We got to talk about this one for a second. We got to talk about lo-fi labels, because you want to talk about some weird predatory shit I've seen.
Those are the ones that tend to hit, that have hit me up in the past, that I've always rejected politely, but yes, it's very predatory.
It's so weird because I remember I heard Beside You was talking very publicly about his like label situation. And apparently on his Spotify, shout out Beside You, by the way, incredible producer, helped push the lo-fi movement to what it is today. Okay.
Sure.
Super cool guy too. But I remember him talking publicly about how like he only gets 50% out of his streams. Right. And that's like assuming that he made the beat by himself. Sometimes he'll collab with people. So I assume that it's either split 33, 33, 33, or more likely 25, 25, 50 with the label, right?
And there might also be an investments that we're not seeing. I don't know, sample clearance or buying specific things like that we don't know.
I don't know.
But we don't know, yeah.
I don't know the whole thing, but what I do know is a lot of these lo-fi people, lo-fi labels are super predatory in a sense of like, they'll say like, hey, we can get you playlist spots. We can get you a whole bunch of this, a whole bunch of that. We want 50% of everything, but with us, you'll get more than twice your normal streams. So it makes sense. So we'll be making like more money, even if you do this. And I'm like sitting here thinking like, okay, well, if you doubled our streams, we'll be making the same amount of money. Right. And I think that a lot of lo-fi producers start out and they really believe in themselves, as they should. You should believe in yourself. If you're an artist, do what you got to do. But I think that people jump on these trains of like, oh, we have this. They'll say it too. They'll be like, all these people who are big. Well, we have this person. We have this person. We have this person. Like, we can get you cool with them. And they'll try to tell you anything, bro, to get you to sign. They'll be like, oh yeah, like, we can get you this, we can get you that. And like all these things that are kind of like unquantifiable. And they just want you to sign on that line because they know that this one beat that you made is going to get like 10 million streams, and they're going to get half of that.
They're going to get all their money back.
And that's
yeah,
all
easy.
they care about it. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of these dudes don't clear samples. They don't spend money on things. They're just a collection, like almost like a collective would be. And they don't really push their artists that much. They just sit back and collect their money. And a lot of these dudes, like, they might make music on their own, you know? And so I've just heard a lot of talks about really shitty label stuff. So I'm just saying, actually, I'm not saying they're bad. All of them are bad, but definitely just
but there are some to look out for. And since, I mean, this conversation kind of like, I think has evolved from what we initially discussed, but I like how it's evolved into this. And we're both ADHD and we go in tangents, but I think this is a really good tangent because it reminded me that oftentimes, like you were talking about the playlist stuff, right? So that's an example of like what all the labels that have ever hit me up have always just kind of quoted, like, we can get you on playlists, or we can get TikTok influencers, specific TikTok influencers, to dance to your music. Now, that may work for some people, but 9 times out of 10, that shit is not a good thing to go with, you know? In my head, at least, if I get put on these playlists, it might generate a certain amount of plays, sure, right? But who's to say that actually generates... okay, let me rephrase this. We know people who have more monthly listeners than us. Twice, sometimes triple our amount. But they don't have the same social interaction. They're not going to have as many people, as many people get engaged with them on Twitter, for instance, right? They're not going to have as many people attend their shows. They're not going to have people, they're not going to be able necessarily to sell out shows the way that we can. They're not going to be able to sell out merchandise the way, yeah, exactly. We sell more merch than a lot of our contemporaries who numbers wise on streaming platforms are doing better than us. And these are the people usually who are with labels or with managers. And it oftentimes comes from the fact that they are on these playlists, or there is a song or two that basically generate those bigger numbers, and that's great. And provided they have a decent split, maybe they're making good money off of that.
Right.
But they don't have that same grassroots support and movement behind it. Like, they couldn't move merch the same way. They couldn't sell tickets the same way. And that is a thing that maybe a label can help you with to develop your following in certain ways and everything, but it's not guaranteed. And it's also something that you can cultivate without it. So since we've been kind of circling around our own careers this entire time, we kind of haven't really touched on more like specifics of our own trajectories, why don't we sort of talk about it a little bit and how we've cultivated what we have up until now, and the various components that came into play throughout that? Because I think I would rather be very transparent and acknowledge that there definitely has been a lot of luck. So I started making music when I was really young, recording cassette tapes, blah, blah. You've heard the story a million times. Started doing stuff on the internet. Was just doing it kind of for fun. Nobody gave a shit. Then some people gave a shit, but not enough to really justify anything. But I always cared. Then my music started getting better. I stayed on the same platforms, more or less. So I started having recurring listeners. So when I dropped a collection of songs in the form of like a mixtape, some people gave a shit. And then also I send it out to a bunch of places. Some places like Anthony Fantano wrote about it on their websites. Some blogs wrote about it, and some didn't, right? And so I started cultivating my audience from that point onwards, and I was working closely with people like Bill and Square already.
Yes.
Bill, you were cultivating a following shortly after that on Tumblr through your being an active member of a community. Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, well, basically what started it was I felt like I always wanted to make like a like a side project, and I had this kind of weird, I know this is going to sound really funny, but you know how Damon Albarn from the Gorillaz was in Blur prior to, and then had also made a bunch of other music, and then decided to start a side project, which was Gorillaz with Jamie Hewlett and Dan the Automator and Del the Funky Homo Sapien, right? And so he started this side project just to make something fun for himself, and it ended up being like way bigger than the stuff he did with Blur. Yeah. And it became some of the best music that I have ever heard. Okay. Like, especially that first one. I love that first album. Right. Yeah. And
Demon Days is incredible too.
Demon Days is good too. I have a hot take on that. We'll talk about that later.
Maybe.
So basically I wanted to create like a side project, and I felt like if I made something that was like very specific, I kind of felt like it would blow up. Like I had this like weird thought in my head where I was like, if I did this thing that was kind of like vaporwave trap type stuff that I was just really legitimately into at the time, then I could and made a blog to go with it, because I was really into, like Charles Hamilton had a blog, and like all these rappers had blogs at the time.
Tyler had a blog at one point too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like the idea was like to make almost like a central location where there's a bunch of things that you would look at while listening to my music. So I had an auto player on and a whole bunch of, it was just like a normal vaporwave kind of Tumblr that delved into like me talking about rap music and my life and all this other stuff. And I made that, and I didn't know at the time, but like I remember I posted like a few things of me rapping on there, and people were like, wow, you can rap, he's pretty good. But then I was like posting the beats, and people were like really fucking with the beats more. Like I was producing under the name Jinzo the Trap Lord. There was more people listening to my beats than my music at the time. And I was like, okay, this is cool, but I'd rather rap than make beats. I like rapping more than making beats. And so I was like, okay, what can I do to kind of like get this attention that I've got on here and put it on me, like as a rapper and more as a person than like this Jinzo the Trap Lord.
Keep that in.
Yeah, Jinzo the Crap Lord. Yeah, no, Jinzo the Trap Lord character that I kind of created, which was really just me. And
right,
so I slowly started doing this thing where I was rapping over just beats that I found on the internet, and I would like shout out blogs that I fucked with, that like I legitimately would talk to all the time, and I would always be like, hey, if you want, I'll shout you out in my Free Verse Friday. And
I remember this.
And I remember like there was a bunch of people I was fucking with, like Crime Wave, Ozcob, like a bunch of people in the fucking like vaporwave community, and like, Crime Wave doesn't make vaporwave, but he was kind of in that,
that realm. Yeah.
That realm for sure. Like we shared a lot of followers and stuff, and like they would repost it. And there was a bunch of other people too, but like a lot of them didn't make music. Like they were just people that I thought were cool on the internet. And then I would like post one, I'd post another one. Then I would post like a serious song, right? Like that wasn't just that. And then it would get shared around a lot. And I was like, fuck, like there's like something to this, And then I dropped Ramona. Like that was when you were there. And I would work every day on the blog. Like I would start, I was working at this, you remember Extended, like it was just, I was working at this, I was basically a secretary, and it was like a student job, but I wasn't even in school at the time. And so I'm sitting there just, instead of working, I would work on this fucking blog on the computer, and I would stay like posting content. I would make GIFs, like all this other shit, and always be posting music. I'd bring my laptop and like bring my headphones and just like make beats when people weren't fucking paying attention. Then we finished Ramona and we dropped it, and that was like the centralized location where everybody was like listening to Ramona was on Tumblr. It was on Bandcamp, but everybody was fucking with it through Tumblr. And then that turned to us doing the Skype calls, which were like, we would get like, at the time, I'd say it was like 40 to 50 people would want to like listen to the album all at once?
No, less, dude. It was like 20.
It was 20. I remember the
Yeah, it was
resin
about
one
20.
being more. But
Resin was more, yeah. I mean, next year is when we started getting more. Resin was more, and then 2 months later, we did Beneath the Toxic Jungle, and that was the first time we did a stream on Discord for an album.
Was Discord Beneath Toxic Jungle was Discord?
Yeah, it was the first time we did Discord.
Damn, that's crazy. For some reason, I was thinking
It's
like
crazy,
Discord
right?
was way later. I don't know why.
No, that's like that was the transitionary point. You started Discord around the same time as you released Resin.
Yeah.
So
and we still
yeah.
do the Discord thing, which is cool. But like that was
which is
that
fun.
was like the one thing that I liked. I'm not as active on the Discord now, just because like I've been kind of trying to be like less like online lately and just
Right,
like
trying to keep
focus on my
yourself-
like life
Yeah.
and shit. But there was a time period when I didn't have a life whatsoever that I would just like stay on that fucking Discord and talk to people and like try to like cultivate some, not even just like a fan base, but like a community of people that all like a lot of them made music, a lot of them didn't, but it was kind of like I felt like this like weird I don't know, man. I hate the idea of like artists acting like they're like above people. I see that shit a lot on the internet, or like how they like interact with
Too
fans. Like they're too
okay,
cool. Yeah.
I think there's a legitimate sort of some people who maybe think they are too cool, but I think some people just have that anxiety, you know. And I know that I'm happy to interact with my audience, but I also sometimes get like a particular type of anxiety that overwhelms me. And
That
I'm
wasn't
someone
really what
who's-
I meant, though. Like, I'm not saying like that you have to interact directly with your fans. I was just like, I felt like I wanted to like talk to people who I would go in there. There'd be people who'd be like fanboying out or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then like I would just like try to talk to them like a normal person that I just met on the internet, you know?
Right,
And
yeah.
I think like
Well, you're very good at that. I think you have a knack for like communicating with people like that. For me, I definitely struggle because I don't know. I think I get in my head, but not in like a narcissistic way, more so like an insecure way.
yeah.
And you know, sometimes I'm just like, I really don't know what to say. But you kind of, I've gotten better over the years because I saw that like, oh, he's just always himself, and that's fine, and people will accept me the way that I am. And the podcast and all of that has helped for sure. But I see what you're saying.
Basically, I inadvertently created a big old Discord community just from wanting to, I don't know, just listen to our albums together.
Yeah. Well, first the need came from like, you just saw that the Discord started like becoming a thing. I think some people were maybe asking for it for an EXO one or something, but I know that you kind of jumped on it because I was like, oh, this is a fad. Like Discord is another one of these like Skype-like fads that's
Yeah.
gonna go away. But you saw opportunity there. You're like, nah, I'll start a community. And you were always, because for you it was a natural transition going from interacting with the audience on Tumblr to interacting with them now on Discord in a way that wouldn't make sense on Skype. Where Skype you have to call someone, whereas on
Yeah.
Discord you can have a constant like room where you could just talk with people already there. So you did that, and then ended up being great for us. But just quickly touching back on Ramona. Yeah, you've cultivated interest in everything prior to that through Tumblr. I was featured on the project a few times, and I've cultivated some interest with, you know, like blog and yeah, like I guess blog and magazine features prior to that for my previous mixtape. And so we had like I had a bit of that. You had like this bigger thing with the Tumblr. And it kind of like combined, and then it continued to snowball because of the quality of the music was so good. Ramona was phenomenal. Everything about it, the artwork, everything just came together so well that it made the rounds on the internet. So it's not like something that was like an overnight success. That week, you know, maybe had a few hundreds.
Yeah,
of
first
plays
day
at
it
most.
had 400 downloads, and I remember being like, holy fuck, this
Holy
is it.
fuck. Yeah, which back then felt like, yo, this is it, right? This is amazing. But it's over the months is that like more people start hearing this tape and they start sharing it. And we were fortunate enough that there was genuine interest in hearing that kind of music and supporting that kind of music, so that when we worked on future projects together or independently, there was now already some interest because people knew like what to expect from us. It's not like we were starting from scratch and we had to prove ourselves to someone. But up until then, up until now, we never were on any labels. You know, I was part of, not really part of the collective, but there was a collective called Senzu Collective, I think. And I basically just allowed them to use 3 or 4 of my songs on a couple of their like weekly or monthly mixtapes that they threw out. So I was never really a part of that. It was just kind of an informal collective.
I let them release some stuff of mine too. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I think you did 2 or 3 songs as well. And then I was part of this also collective, but we called ourselves a label. It was Black Chalk Records or whatever.
Right.
And that I was one of the founders of that, and none of the people involved, none of the founders involved were industry professionals or had any experience with this kind of stuff. We were just like it's like starting a band with your friends.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
On the internet with people you don't know in person.
Yeah, exactly. And so then we started EXO, which is a collective. Again, a very informal one. We're not a corporate entity. We don't really have any proper responsibilities. It's more so like being part of like a club, you know, like, hey, are you one of these guys?
The EXO Biker Club.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a biker club. Exactly. So,
yeah. But we never, instead of Harley Davidsons, we have like anxiety.
Exactly.
That's it.
Dude, that is such a perfect way to describe us. I love it. So we didn't have any industry support, but there was a lot of effort that went into making sure people heard it. There was a lot of tenacity. We made music for a long time. We knew what we wanted to make, and we were just fortunate enough where I don't think either one of us were desperate for success. When, you know, like Ramona or Beneath the Toxic Jungle came together, there was just wanting to create something and everything, and so we kind of went out at our own pace, and things worked out. We got support from a lot of people who helped elevate it. So for instance, after Beneath the Toxic Jungle, after Resin and all of that, we started attaining even more attention. And that was great. We were building something. We got flown out to do a show in Wisconsin just from cultivating that attention online.
Yeah.
You know, we had it paid for, and we started cultivating an active following on Twitter and Discord.
I never got paid for that show, by the way. Did you?
Nope, not at all.
Hell yeah.
They covered the plane tickets, our stay there.
It was a good time.
And the food. It was free. Yeah,
it was fine. I had a good time.
It was fine. I'm not mad, but yeah, we didn't get paid when we should have. But anyway, that's a whole different story. But it's something we managed to do that without any like professional guidance. I think we were just fortunate enough that we were in the right time, right place, but also around the right people. So like, you know, Bill helped me with things when I was in doubt. I helped him when he was in doubt, and we had other people around us to help. You know, whether it was Square, Roger, or anyone else like that we sort of knew around that time, you know? Yeah. So it worked out, and then it just so happened that when Ramona came out, was it Jackson who heard our music first?
Yeah, Jackson heard. He heard it on 4chan, like on 4chan. The music board. Yeah.
Which we didn't post it there, by the way. Someone posted it on 4chan. So again, this goes to show how much like you guys sharing makes a difference. Someone posted it to 4chan. He heard it. He liked it, and he put Matt onto it when they were in college in the same city as we were at the time when we.
Isn't that weird? I bet they didn't even know. Like, I don't think they knew that we were in Columbia, or that I wasn't based out of South Carolina, which was like real crazy. And then, did he follow you first, or he followed us both at the same time?
He followed us both first, but I'm the one who communicated with him first, because I was like,
yeah, I didn't even see that he followed me.
I saw he followed it. I was like, who is it? I was like, this name rings a bell. And I was like, why? And I went on his thing, and it said like part of Super Mega. I'm like, that rings a bell even more. Then I'm like, wait, aren't those the new Game Grumps editors? So that's how I was like, oh my God, that's awesome. I've always been a huge Game Grumps fan and just a Aaron Hansen fan in general.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, it's like I get to be part of someone listens to us who's from that world that I listen to. And so that was the first engagement. And I told you, like, yo, dude, that's crazy that, you know, he's following us, and started talking. And Matt showed us love over the years. And so has Ryan. And that helped attain another set of eyes and attention onto us, right? That helped boost the growth, the speed of our growth.
Yeah.
And but if it weren't also for us having that cultivated already a dedicated grassroots following up until then, I don't think they would have latched on as easily, because there was already a community there. They just basically helped make it grow. And it was so organic because, you know, Matt is not an industry person, but he is someone who does have a certain level of success on the internet, a certain amount of attention, and it just so happens that the people who fuck with him found things in our music that they fucked with, and it worked out that we have a good crossover audience. And then through being friends with Ross, we got deeper into that world. With Matt, we became friends with people like Ross, and we became friends with people like Frank, and started making further connections, and it gave us more and more opportunities over time in a way that almost like a label would, you know, or like all of these things would. But this was an organic way. No one paid anyone. No one owes anyone anything. It's like the most organic way that you can just connect with someone, and it works out in your favor. And that is pure luck. That, you know, we were just lucky that our music got posted. That's
so crazy to think, like, if that person didn't post that, I mean, I feel like if that person didn't post that thing on 4chan at the time, then that would not have been, for pretty much for sure, would not have been an album that influenced them in any kind of way.
We might have still had day jobs right now. Yeah.
That's crazy. Because, like, I mean, like, you can't deny that, like, that interaction, like, our interactions with Matt and Ryan and Jackson and just everybody, like, over there, like, if we didn't have those interactions, then we would be in a very different spot right now. I'm not saying it'd be, like, better or worse. It would probably be worse, but you know what I mean? Like,
but we can only speculate. What we know is that they were definitely very instrumental in our current situations. And I mean, and it all came about from a very natural way that's kind of hard to replicate through a deal necessarily, because it just so happened to be like a very serendipitous kind of set of circumstances that have led to what is now. And we were able to accomplish now, obviously, all of this without labels or any deals. And now it's in our favor to not go with any deal unless it's a distribution deal, as you said, right? Where we get to own our rights. Kind of like basically what I think Chance the Rapper had been doing for many years, where, you know, yeah, he's an independent artist, but he actually has distribution deals. He's not just making all these CDs. I don't know
his whole situation, but I know Macklemore was like one of the first people to just do distribution, and that was like a big deal. I remember that being like a big deal. Like,
yeah. And because that is fairly independent. It's basically you're just, what at that point it is not you're fulfilling a contractual obligation. You're outsourcing merch production, essentially, right?
Pretty much,
and,
yeah.
And so and selling that and all the fulfillment stuff, just not having to deal with that yourself. And yeah, so maybe those are the kinds of things we'd explore. But in short, I guess what we were saying is that if you go with the route of going with the label, chances are you are going to be sacrificing a certain amount of like rights to your music, certain amount of freedoms potentially too, if the label doesn't trust you creatively to move in the right direction. This is why sometimes labels can be strict with how they want your music to sound and everything, is because they just don't trust you and your gut instinct, and they want to make a return on their money. But conversely, just going purely independent means you have to build that grassroots shit from the beginning. You have to hope for a lot of luck as well. And I mean, you have to put in the work. Had we not put in the work, obviously the luck wouldn't have mattered. It's a combination of hard work and luck. But also that means you have to do almost everything yourself, which means learning everything yourself, how to do everything yourself. And my suggestion there would be like integrating yourself in communities and groups of circles of friends that maybe have similar interests as you, so that you can grow.
Yeah.
But those are some basically main differences for me.
Yeah, and just like don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't be afraid to like reach out to people. Like that's a big thing that I've noticed. Like, I mean, people ask me stuff all the time, and I try to respond to people, especially if it's like technical questions or something that I know that if I didn't have the knowledge on, or something that like it took me a long time to figure out. And someone asked me that, sometimes I'll try to. I mean, obviously I can't get back to everybody, and it's like kind of stressful getting to that conversation going. But like, yeah, definitely like just being active in a community and where people like share knowledge on things. I know like a lot of times too, like I still learn stuff all the time, but I watch like Kenny Beats' streams a lot, and I learn a lot of stuff through that, and like other people just online. Like Andrew Huang is a pretty like great wealth of information when it comes to, and like knowledge when it comes to like plug-in stuff or like music theory stuff. Like that's a big
that's
thing.
so crazy. Yeah, like the now there's so much stuff like that out there. There's videos out there for people who give specific advice on printing merch or making merch, or going to different places, or like comparing different companies and providers, or there's so, as you said, production, mixing, all of these things, which when we started off, I remember it was just so little information out there. I think outside of Gear Sluts, there was close to nothing on mixing online that you could find that was actually helpful.
Gear Sluts is a fucking Wild West, man.
Gear Sluts is rough, bro. And a lot of the advice that I came across on there, thank God I didn't take, because it was just a lot of it is hit and miss. Let's say that. My
problem with Gear Sluts is the average user of Gear Sluts is like, I feel like older, and they don't make like, I don't know, man. A lot of times, like I'll talk to people. It's like, it reminds me of not my psych professor, but when I was working at Extended, there was a psych professor in there who would always just be like, I don't know how you listen to this new music. Analog is the way to go. I don't listen to anything unless it was analog. And I would just be kind of like, how do you like live your life?
Right, yeah.
And just like not enjoy anything that's like not recorded prior to like 1982. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, but a lot of those dudes will be like, well, I got this microphone and it sounds really good when I run it through this compressor, through this and this and this. And I'd just be like, bro, I don't have none of this shit. It's like, I don't know.
First of all, all of that shit costs $10,000. Second of all, like, a lot of the times it's the same people that if they would be like, oh yeah, you cannot achieve this kind of sound in FL or with this kind of microphone, and then when you do achieve it or surpass it, they're like, they don't know what to say. It's like, because they're kind of stuck in a world that they've constructed in their heads where you have to have certain type of equipment, you have to have certain type of technique for it to be good. And these kinds of constraints for us as artists are counterproductive and counterintuitive, because we're always looking at not so much the gear itself and the means of making something, so much as the result. And so we explore and we adventure, and there's a lot of trial and error that I think a lot of those people don't entertain as much because of their more like conservative ways in terms of production, and recording.
Yeah. I also think it's kind of like the same, it seems like the same kind of crowd as like on SoundClick forums back in the day. It would always be like the guy who like, yeah, well, I studied mixing at Full Sail. And it was just like, oh man, I hated that shit, dude. I hated that shit because like you can't.
And their mixes still sound worse. than a lot of people who don't
I feel like we've
learn that
had
shit.
this exact same conversation on the podcast, but fuck it, I like making fun of these people so much. Like, I'm not
I
saying that
agree.
you shouldn't go like study mixing somewhere. I did, and I learned a lot. Okay, I learned like 2 things, but I use those 2 things every day. You know, like when I do mix. You know, but I would say like, I hated the people that would come in and like, let's say like, I felt like I was pretty confident in my mixes back in the day. I'd be like, okay, this sounds pretty good. It sounds like what I want. It's not like the best, but it's like, it sounds like what I like.
No, but it sounded good. I go back to a lot of those mixes and I still think they sound great.
Well, that's good. Thank you. But I will make those mixes and then like they would be the one guy who'd be like, man, like, how do you do this? Like, what do you have on your master chain? And I know like my master chain is probably my weakest thing, you know, but it's like I would always just compensate for it in the mix, you know, and they would be like, well, I learned that such and such and such, and you shouldn't do it like this. You should do it like this and all this other stuff. And then you listen to their mixes and they sound like garbage, you know, and I'm like, that's not. You can't like teach someone. You can teach someone you can give them the tools to do something, but you can't teach someone to be good. Like you just have to learn to be good, or like you can't do something without taste. Like you can't teach taste to someone, you know. And
Absolutely. I feel like I liken it to Impressionism, right? When Monet, Rene, and all these people came out, there was this conservative movement that was like, this isn't art. This isn't high art.
Yeah.
The proportions are all off. The colors are all crazy. No, you can't do it. No, when you draw people, you have to do is you have to go with like, you have to do this and you have to do that. These are just like rules. Everybody knows that, right? And
you drew him with big pee-pee, but he needs a little pee-pee.
But seriously, there was an expectation of how you have to do things because like we've reached, you know, and during the Renaissance, we learned that this is how we have to proportion people and everything. And the funny thing is, most of these Impressionists knew that. They could do photorealistic stuff. Their style wasn't a crutch necessarily. It was a decision. It's something they wanted to do. They wanted to venture out a new form of and explore a new form of expression. And had they just stuck by those like rules, quote unquote rules that people sort of agreed on, then we wouldn't have had as much interesting art. Then we wouldn't have pushed on forth and then gotten cubism and surrealism and everything. You know, that started with the Impressionist movement. And we probably wouldn't have so much dope art that we have now and just the kind of culture that we have, were it not for the people who broke these quote-unquote rules. So when it comes to art, I don't think there are any rules. Just don't expect everyone to like what you do. Just because you're being different doesn't mean it's going to be everyone's cup of tea, right? You can't... It's not about just being different. That's like the thing. It's not about being different for the sake of being different. It's just about trying new things, maybe by not being constrained by quote-unquote rules when you want to express something in a particular way.
Yeah,
that's basically how I see it.
Okay, listen, I just want to have this conversation really quick. Like, so I felt a little constrained by the rules of art when I did my stick figure drawing the other day of you standing next to Borat, who was standing next to Borat 2, the stronger Borat. And you said some kind of harsh things. I know those are both your favorite movies of all time, especially the second one.
Actually, I haven't seen it yet. I do look forward to it, though.
It was all right.
Oh, really?
I mean, I watched it.
Did you like it better than the first one?
I haven't seen the first one since I was like 15, or whenever it came out, the year it came out. I loved it when I was.
I was 11 or 12 when it came out. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, when I was 2 years old, I loved it. But okay, as I was saying, you said some harsh words about you standing next to Borat and then also Borat 2. And I want you to apologize because you're sounding a little conservative, my man.
What did I say? Just refresh my memory.
I can't say it on here.
Just, censor yourself. Like, replace it with softer words.
You said... you said... I think that you said... You called it a big poo-poo drawing, and I thought to myself, that's not cool that you said that, because I fucking worked really hard on this, and you just tore down everything that I worked on.
I mean, I didn't judge your technique, you know, I just thought it was a big poo-poo drawing. That's kind of my review of it. I thought it was I didn't like it, but I mean, you know, you do you.
I have nothing left. So I have.
So anyway, man, I was thinking to myself the other day, life's good, right? Life's good.
I'm going to commit suicide. Right now. It's your fault.
Sorry, I was checking my text. Did you say something?
No.
Okay, good.
So I guess I'll see you next week.
Yeah, same time next week.
Yeah. I'm going to end it.
Yeah, we should end the podcast. Yeah, you're right.
My life.